So, I want to talk to you about how sweet beverages have become, and why I left the liquor business, because everything seems to be really sweet, and then you add alcohol to it. And when I worked in the liquor business, and I was traveling around the world as a rum judge and master mixologist, and I guess what you call it, a brand ambassador, I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am right now because of all the sugar. And it got me to think that all the sugar that I was eating and drinking was not good for me. So when I got into the cannabis business, not because I wanted to get into the cannabis business, I'd been smoking weed since I was 12 and I'm 60, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. So I wrote a book called Apothecary Cocktails, and that was back in 2013. And the only ingredient that my publisher wouldn't let me use, which was true to form in publishing because they tend to be pretty conservative, was cannabis. But when I was doing my research for Apothecary Cocktails, I came upon a little town called New Orleans. And I was down there for a little event called Tales of the Cocktail. And I was nominated for a Spirited Award for my book, Apothecary Cocktails. And I visited the Pharmacy Museum where I was doing a presentation, book signing. And I got there, and at the same time, they were doing a presentation called Cannabis in the Early Apothecary. So what you see in front of you here is a little visual overview of the way it used to be in the 1800s in New Orleans on Royal Street. And when they made a preparation that would have healing qualities to it, it usually was cannabis that was in there. And it really was the only ingredient that did anything. But I need to go back a little bit. And I want to kind of give you an overview of the years before electricity and the years before refrigeration. So you would add different ingredients into these curatives, like alcohol, to keep the cannabis or whatever, the preparations fresh. And sugar played a great role in that, because sugar is an incredible preservative because of the pH. And it keeps things fresh, along with that beverage alcohol that I was talking about before. So the history of working with cannabis goes back 5,000 years. And I learned that by writing my book, Cannabis Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics, which is right here. This beautiful little book that made me a star in some places in the world. And, I wanted to kind of give the idea that when you made cannabis beverages, they didn't have to be sweet to sell. And as I've discovered by doing research into the early apothecary and into cannabis beverages, they really weren't that sweet to begin with. Like medicine. Medicine, they say take a spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down. Well, that's why we have sweet drinks today. But those sweet drinks are not that healthy for you, as I found out. So there have been numerous studies and articles by acclaimed institutions that say that cannabis is not bad for you in your beverages, and it's probably a good thing. And if there's anything that I can say in my own personal experience about losing almost 100 pounds by cutting sugar out of my diet, it also happens that I cut it out of my drinks too. So I'm known as a mixologist who doesn't make sweet drinks. And last night I did an event, and the key example was that the drinks weren't sweet. They were spicy, they were savory, they had beautiful balance, but they're not sweet. I think as Americans, we look upon things that are sweet as something very attractive and saleable. Something I learned when I was over in Russia teaching at the Moscow Bar Show, and I made the ginger cocktail that I made last night at the bar show, and these Russian guys would come up to me and say, "This is a delicious drink, but it's not sweet," because the Russians have a historic passion for sweet things, and for 100 or so years they were not allowed to use sugar. Sugar was a luxury item. So now that sugar is allowed to be sold in the former Soviet Union in Russia, the drinks tend to be really, really sweet. So I didn't want to do that. The book tells you that if you cut back on the sugar and make something that's really aromatic and make something that actually tastes like cannabis, then you have something. So I created a beverage here in California and named it after, this little guy here wearing his little mask. And he's traveled all over the world with me. And he's from the 1850s, and his name is Klaus. And he's a good little guy liked by most, but he really inspired me. And he inspired me as, in Germany with gnomes, they're always meant to tempt you to do things you might not necessarily want to do. But in this case, it's a good thing. We're not drinking alcohol to excess anymore. We're building really carefully made craft mocktails or cocktails without alcohol, but with THC. Many people have asked me over the years while I was formulating Klaus, what it was going to taste like. And I said it was going to taste like balance. It was going to be a touch sweet, with a touch tangy and a touch of spice. Like really good soup. I'm trained as a saucier, as a chef, so I wanted to make something that had great balance to it, that really spoke to the quality of the ingredients. The last time I spoke out here, 2 years ago, I said, cannabis drinks suck. And they do. Well, most of them. Because most of them don't really challenge your intellect, and they certainly don't challenge your palate, and they don't teach you anything about flavor. They just kind of get you high, but they don't even taste like weed. And that's the problem that I have with many of the cannabis beverages that are out in the market today. Not that they aren't doing a good job, not that they aren't selling a ton of their product, but they're not pushing the limits. And the limits are, in most of the spaces, seltzer. What is seltzer? I mean, I drink seltzer with a corned beef sandwich when I go to Katz's in the Lower East Side. But it doesn't have weed in it, and it certainly doesn't have, candy-flavored ingredients. In other words, they're too sweet. They really are. And I when I pitched this presentation, I said that, I've done a lot of research. I write for Skunk Magazine. I formerly wrote for Forbes. I cover this space really, really in depth. And I noticed that 99% of the products on the market taste like candy. I mean, there's no sophistication in it. I'm looking for something that really challenges my intellect. I wanted to create a beverage of my own that tests those boundaries of sweetness. Something that made you think about, do I really need that second dessert in the form of a drink? I don't think so. I mean, I look at myself in the mirror and I don't recognize myself because of the fact that, I was in the rum world, and that's all about sugar, and then you add sugar ingredients and you add, sugar syrups, and before you know it, you have, 3,000 or 4,000 calories in a couple sips, and it's all going to the gut. So these are some examples of work that I've done. The one on the left is THC-infused condensed milk with a Vietnamese iced coffee. So you have that beautiful chicory flavor, which is somewhat bitter, touch sweet from the condensed milk. There's condensed milk that's sweetened, and there's also the non-sweetened condensed milk. So I use the non-sweetened, and you can use the sweetened if you want. It tends to be very, very sweet. The one on the right-hand side is a mango lassi. And that mango lassi there is finished off with Peychaud bitters. So it has a little bit of the bitter, a little bit of that absinthe, licoricey flavor with the beautiful ebullient flavors of mango and, of course, the Greek yogurt. So it's tangy, it's slightly spicy, it's definitely not sweet. But I can tell you, both of those cocktails right there have no alcohol, but they have about 250 milligrams of THC in them. Because I did not write this book, as a recreational book. I wrote it as a book that would be a guide for apothecarians, for people like myself who are nerds, who wanted to create something that no one had ever done before. And when I wrote my book in 2014, I had no idea that there was a market out there for any of these ideas. My publisher, I was really surprised that they gave me this book. I pitched it, and they literally gave me a month to write it, to create all the recipes, to test them out, 75 recipes, to test them, to make sure they work, to make sure they get you stoned. I mean, that was the idea in the first place. And then the other idea, which I really hadn't talked about, was that when you drink a cannabis cocktail, when you enjoy a cannabis cocktail, nobody knows your business. Case in point, I'm walking down the street behind Port Authority. The year is about 2006, and I'm smoking a joint, and my world changed about 2 minutes later when I got arrested for smoking cannabis in New York City, and they sent me to Rikers Island for 48 hours to chill my heels. And that's why I wrote my book, and that's why I created a beverage, because when you smoke a joint in the street, everyone knows your business. But when you enjoy a delicious cannabis cocktail, no one has to know what you're doing. And that's really, my dad was alive then. And when I told him that I got arrested for smoking weed in the street, he said, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to you. And at the time, I was not thrilled. I was really upset. There's something about being in handcuffs that I cannot explain to anyone. I'm a nice guy. I don't belong in jail for smoking cannabis. No one belongs in jail for smoking cannabis. But they threw me at Rikers Island. So I created this beverage that gets you as stoned as anything you'd ever want, and no one has to know what you're doing. And I think that's really important. So this is Klaus. And Klaus is a really interesting beverage because this is my passion. And as a master mixologist, I wanted to create something that was not just sparkling water with flavors added. And I wanted to say that I was influenced by the early apothecary. I wanted to tell you that, back in the day in the 1800s, when these drinks were made popular, by individuals coming out, and they'd go to their pharmacist, they'd tell them what was the matter with them, and the pharmacist would prescribe something, or a formulary, a preparatory pharmacist would create the beverage. So Klaus is loosely created to give you a feeling from the ages of the early apothecary. It's a drink that heals the gut. And why is that important? Well, when you have a tummy ache, you're in a bad mood. When your stomach hurts, nothing seems to be good. Your head hurts, your body hurts, and it all goes back to the gut. Healing the gut, if you have good gut balance, you feel good, you're in a good mood. When you're in a bad mood, usually it's because something's gone wrong inside here and you need to balance it somehow. So my drink is a very interesting thing. It's only 3 ingredients. And I learned how to create drinks with only 3 ingredients or 4 ingredients out of being a bartender. When 100 people come up to the bar and everyone wants something different and in multiples, and it takes 5 or 7 minutes to make each of those cocktails, and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're not happy. So I created something with 3 ingredients. The 3 ingredients are Pickett's ginger beer syrup, which is a spicy hot healing curative for the gut. And the next one was a lime puree that I get from Le Barman in France. And that gives you power against scurvy. Scurvy still exists in the modern age. So we have lime in there to get rid of your scurvy. And then we have a little bit of rice wine vinegar because that heals the gut. As a saucier, as someone who works with flavors and creates balance and depth and quality of the ingredients, I wanted simplicity. I wanted great flavor that really jumps out at you. And I wanted to have something that healed my gut because I got a Jewish belly. I'm always upset. I always have something going on. I always have a stomach ache. When I have a little bit of Klaus around, it balances my gut. And it goes back to the early apothecary, when it was really important that you had good gut balance. And the reason why that was important was because of the lack of refrigeration and the lack of electricity to keep things cool. So drinks had to be shelf stable. They were really meant to not get you sick or any sicker than you were already. And when they had a little bit of vinegar in that, it gave your gut great balance. So my drink, again, 3 ingredients and live resin, which is something very, very interesting. And for all you weed nerds out there, and I know there's a couple of them, live resin is really raising the bar. And I wanted to include live resin because it actually tastes like cannabis. How many drinks are out there on the market right now that actually taste like weed? I'd say 0 or less. They say they have cannabis in them, but they don't taste like it. And they certainly don't smell like it. And that weed taste is lost in the fluff of advertising and marketing and everything else. And so what that it has weed in it? It doesn't taste like it. Okay, so it gives me the effect that I might be looking for, but I wanted to raise the bar. I wanted to make something that actually tasted like the plant, the thing that I've been hiding from my parents since I was 12 years old. I want to taste it. I want to taste it with all the different layers of flavor, the way they reveal themselves to you. And that's what's important to me about this industry. It's not just about making a great cocktail that's the best cocktail that anyone's ever had. It's about making something that changes the way that Americans drink. And creating a drink that's not sweet was the most important thing that I could do in my life. Because I see what Americans drink, and I saw what Russians drink. Do you know, I'm just going to open it up just for a second. Do you know what the most favored drink in Russia right now? It's not Starbucks. I mean, they have Starbucks in Moscow. But really, their most favorite thing is Dunkin' Donuts. And coming from New Jersey, I can tell you there's a Dunkin' Donuts in every block. And the way that they like their coffee over there in Russia is light and sweet. And, that's how they like it in New Jersey. They like it light and sweet. So I was ready for that. And I knew that was waiting for me when I got there, that you can go out for a cocktail during the day, but really what people want to do is they want to go out for Dunkin' Donuts because it represents the America, and they represents sweet. Because we're going to go back again to the way that things used to be. They used to be incredibly sweet, no balance, one-dimensional flavors. I wanted to do better. So working with Chris Anderson over at Beer Associates, I was able to formulate, and I formulated my own beverage, a drink which I believe would change the business, totally change the industry. Maybe I'm not capable of doing it just on my own, but I'm making an effort to make a drink that challenges your intellect, makes something fun to do, and it's a beautiful product. Let's see, we have it right there. Yeah, so moving all around in circles is my little guy, my little gnome, and something that really does work. It really creates a feeling that, I don't know, it's just different. It's different somehow because, as I said, it's not a sweet beverage. It's a beverage that has challenge to it. When I studied to be a saucier over in France as an American, which was a pretty hard thing to do, they taught me that to build great sauces, you had to start off with great ingredients. So all my ingredients are the best quality that money can buy. I'm not using concentrates. I'm not using artificial ingredients at all. They're all, the best things that money can buy. And that's what I'm encouraging people within the industry of cannabis beverages to do, to source the best ingredients that you can buy, because that's the things that you're drinking. You want to have good quality. You want to have something that changes the way that you would perceive a cannabis beverage. Right now, my perception is seltzer and an amalgamation of different herbs and spices, and mostly on the sweet side. And I think that's flawed technology. It's flawed, flawed idealism, that things have to be sweet to be good. So, walk through the halls here today and take a look at what other people are doing and ask the tough questions. And the tough question that I would say is, why are everything so sweet? What is the reason? What is the outlying reason that a cannabis beverage is immediately thought of as something that needs to be like candy? And that I had a lot of difficulty with. So when I was trying to find an incubator to help me come to market, the first thing out of their mouths was, how sweet is it? And I said, not at all. It's actually quite the opposite. It's not spicy. It's not sweet. It's not tangy, but it's a combination of all those flavors. And if you can irk that out of ingredients that you have at your disposal, you have something that's different. It's something that will, as I keep saying, will change the world. And that's my intent in life, is to change the world, or at least change the way that the world drinks. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to drink things that are sophisticated. As a member of the bartending guild, the individuals that taught me my craft would always say the same thing. There are so many sweet drinks that people are drinking. What we talk about is raising the bar, raising the quality level to a degree that has flavors that make you think, that are communicative, that you want to talk about with your friends. I tried this incredible beverage the other day. It was so food friendly. It made me want to go out and get yada, yada, yada to drink with it, because it made me hungry, it made me thirsty, and it made me want to have another. And that's the key to staying in business, is to get that word of mouth. And I think with this product, it does have word of mouth, even before we've opened our mouths and said anything. Because it is different. Because you just look at the packaging. It's beautiful to look at, and I can't wait to see one discarded in the street, because I know I'm going to pick it up and say, that's my drink. And I think that's, I don't know, I think in life you get the opportunity of doing what you love when you try to create something out of nothing. And for 20 years I was a banker. I was an executive assistant in private banking. I worked for a couple of the big banks in their private banking area, and I supported high-level executives. They won't talk to me today. They're all so jealous. They still work in the corporate world. They can't believe that I left the corporate world to do this, to really do what I love, and to find my passion, and to make something that's delicious, and to change the way they perceive beverages. Because I've always worked around beverages, and I hear the way people speak. They say, oh, it's a sweet drink. Oh, I don't like sweet drinks. And I said, no, it's not a sweet drink. Not another sweet drink. And not another seltzer. Because, as I say, you walk around the floor and you see most of them are just fizzy water with flavorings in them. I'm happy to say that they're doing something and they're getting out there and getting their products to the market, but it's not challenging my palate. And if I had a chance to do anything that I wanted in life, it was going to, let's see, do we have anything else there? No. Oh yeah, there it is. I wanted to just do something that was different. And sometimes when you're working with other people's money, it makes it easier. But I wanted to make, as I said, I wanted to do something with someone else's money that would change the way that I thought about beverages. And that's essentially the reasoning for things. So I wanted to open it up to questions. I know you probably have 1,000,001 questions. Would you like to ask something? Please.
How you doing?
Fantastic.
I was curious about the artwork.
John Mammis is my artist. He's also my partner in the business. I found that the best way of getting the best talent when you can't afford to pay is to make them part of the business. So you give them, a little bit of skin in the game, and you say, you want to do well by me, I'll do well by you, and I'll help your pocket if you help mine. Because right now I have like zero, and I can tell you about the hundreds of thousands of dollars I spend in 2 years traveling and trying to make this thing work. The best way to make it work is to find people who are as passionate and who want to see it come forward as much as I do, and John did a great job. He's done Nike, Puma, Whole Foods, BMW. He's done a lot of nice things. Cool stuff. Hi.
We haven't met, but I'm Annie Holman.
Hi, Annie. How are you? Nice to meet you in person.
So what about the resistance that we're getting from the dispensaries? Do you think that's going to ease up, or how can we ease that up?
I don't know. Everyone I've talked to wants it, like today.
Oh,
And we're going to. I just learned from I just learned from the guy who's doing my packaging that we're going to do it the 18th and the 19th, which is like next week. So I'm really excited. I get to share that with all of you. This is my dream come true. I mean, look at the goosebumps. You can't make that stuff up. Next week I get to cry for the first time in a while because I'll be crying because of good tears because of seeing my passion come to market, or at least come to production, and then we can go forward and worry about, why is the 60-year-old guy crying in front of you? Any other questions? Please.
What is the potency and how did you decide on it?
Okay, potency is 10 milligrams, which is our maximum. I would have loved to have done 60, but they don't allow it here. And then it's live resin, so it has a different technique, and it has beautiful terps in place, so it smells like and it tastes like the strain that we used. I think we use Hippie Chaser, which is a indica, but it's sativa leaning, so the onset is very much of an up, and as it comes down, it's very relaxing and very pure. But you do notice that, and the onset time is like 5 minutes. So, I'm not advocating mixing alcohol with it, but botanical gin and Klaus, double thumbs up. Any other questions? Over there. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not looking here. Yes, in the flowered shirt, sir.
Is it water soluble or is it vinegar?
It's water soluble. Yeah, and the pH is beautiful. It's shelf stable. So I'm using Velacrin, I think is the antimicrobial in there, but it doesn't have to be refrigerated like so many of the products that are on the market. They need refrigeration. I mean, after you open it, it should be refrigerated, but it's only an 8-ounce can, so I recommend single use. There were some others? Yes, sir.
What emulsion are you using? What technology?
Vertosa made my emulsion, so the technical questions about that should probably go to them, but it's a water-soluble emulsion using actual strains of cannabis that we can determine where they come from and who made it. So that has a cachet to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying 5-minute onset?
Yeah, 5 to 10. Yeah, it's a really fast onset because it's live resin, so it has a different effect. I wouldn't say it's like dabbing, which dabbing in me I throw up. So it's not like that. It's a very nice, full-bodied, get stoned experience in a little can.
And the rice wine vinegar it's working as a preservative?
No, not at all. It's flavor.
Just flavor. But
Yeah, just flavor, and it's industrialized, so it's not adding pH. So it's an integral ingredient along with my ginger and lime puree. You'll see. It's really cool. It's like nothing you've ever tasted before, man. I'm really thrilled about it because it's totally different than anything I've ever tasted. And quite frankly, I think it's the best drink I've ever made. But if I didn't say that, I would be a fool. Yes? We have to go through, we're going to do our first canning in, let's see, what's today? Today is the 11th. We're going to do the first canning in about a week and a half. And then they have to do stability tests. So we're hoping in the beginning of December. I'm pretty confident that it'll be out, And then I get to start flying back and forth from New Jersey to wherever I am, California. It's in California, so. Anyone else would like to ask anything? Ta-da. Thank you. And Klaus cares. He really does. See, he has his little mask on.
Thank you,
Sure.
Warren. Thank you, Klaus. We'll photo shoot opportunity. If anyone needs a Klaus moment, now's your
Yes,
now's
really.
your time.
He really is famous. You know, I made cocktails for the powers that be in Russia, in Moscow. I can tell you that I took a picture of him and Putin, but they wouldn't let me keep the picture.
Anyway,
Well, we're
cheers.
glad you lived to tell that story.
Oh, I did. They loved me there. I'm Russian. Come on.
All right, thank you, Warren. And we're very excited to see what's next for Klaus.